All right. Well, we're back for the final mastermind. And we read the 3 books. And so what I wanted to do for us today is just kind of lay out what our agenda would be for this session. First, we're just going to review the key learnings. I pulled some key concepts from each of the books that would be great for us to take forward after today. We'll go around and every participant will have an opportunity to reflect on what they gained from the work of our group. And then we would each make a SMART goal that would allow us to move forward from today. And in your email, I sent a survey that you could give us some feedback on your experience and help us to improve this for the next round. So we're going to kick off with driving from the back seat. So having Ronnie as part of the sessions was pretty magical. And so Ronnie, I don't know if you remember saying this, but you said this in your book. You said, well, why don't you read it so we can hear it in your own voice?
Okay, what do you just want me to give a recap of it?
Well, I've got 2 slides. Can you just read this quote out loud so that we can hear it in your own voice?
It is an amazing thing being the CEO of a not-for-profit organization. Amazing because it is more than a job, position, or career. It is truly a calling. It is an opportunity to make a lasting positive impact on your community for the greater good. Seize the opportunity where your heart, head, skills, talent, and passions lead you, and you will leave a legacy.
Ronnie, what do you want to teach us as we go forth, knowing that we're going to send this video out to everyone who was part of this in the beginning?
The whole notion of the reason a not-for-profit organization even exists is because it provides a service, in most cases a service or an opportunity that the general for-profit capitalistic world will not do or cannot do for various reasons. That's why government steps in and gives a certified not-for-profit organization a tax break, because government knows that the constituency that's being helped by this not-for-profit organization would not be being helped if there were not some incentive or some way to make it more, to make the numbers work, as opposed to just a general business transaction. And so you start the process from a position of service, from a position of caring, from a position of understanding. And that's why you're looking at the first bullet that's like, who am I and why am I here? You have to first care, as far as I'm concerned, about the constituency, about the service or opportunity that you're providing, and the true benefit to the recipients that you're providing it for. And if you start there, the rest, it comes to you. But if you can't start there from that position of service, then you might not want to be in the not-for-profit world.
Thanks, Ronnie. Ronnie, there was a portion of the book that I thought was really important, where you talk about the relationship with the board and you talk about the relationship with the officials. And you asked the question, where do you sit? Remember where you're sitting. And that's, the important piece where you remind leaders of the value of those relationships. Can you give a little bit of wisdom just on that piece, since so many of our people are involved in boards?
The probably one of the most, prominent thoughts in the book is the time that we spend on understanding the board and developing a relationship between the CEO and the board. 85% of CEOs who are asked to leave a position, it's nothing to do with the execution of the program that the organization is charged with. It's some individual or several individuals on the board that have not been managed to the point, and the CEO is asked to leave. It is very important that a CEO truly understands and have a relationship with every individual board member, because every board member sits on that board for a different reason. And you need to understand why that individual is there. Because if you don't, you'll make the mistake of not giving them what they want out of it. They're not working for a paycheck. Employees, at least at the end of the day, you know what they want, at least the primary. With the board, you have to find out. And you can do some very simple stuff, maybe in your mind, something that might be considered very minute, but to an individual, it could really cause you serious problem. I'll give you a couple examples. If you're speaking at an event and you have a board member in the audience and you fail to recognize your board member, that's a no-no. Never. Or you put together a program and you give a racial mic time and you don't give Steve mic time, or you just don't. It's simple stuff. And once someone gets a bird under the saddle with you, and then it just kind of builds on. It builds on. And if you're not aware of what's happening, and where most of us fail, we take for granted because someone comes to a board meeting and smiles during the meeting, all is well. All is not well. And so you need to sit down, have a cup of coffee, and really make sure that that what you're assuming is correct. And if it's not, ask the tough questions and find out what do you need to do to make sure the relationship is where you want it to be. Because the tenure of a CEO, there can be a lot of turnover in some areas, and it's usually because of the board. And it's been good for me in one way because my business relative to board training has really picked up. And I think with training, it really helped board members to really understand their lane and their relation, how the relationship should be with the CEO.
That's great. Thanks, Ronnie. I really appreciate that. And I think that, the book is just full of salient points that we could go back to. Managing someone else's expectations is something that is, I think, universal for every relationship, whether it's nonprofit, board, or your own home. And so one of the things that we learn from the 5 dysfunctions of a team is that idea that managing expectations and being really clear about things allows people to get their focus on the right things, to have that ability to have difficult conversations that are progressing towards that end goal, bringing about clarity and closure. And that's that expectations piece again. And really allowing these organizations to bring people together in a way that gets them on the same, rowing in the same direction, as Patrick Lencioni says. And so as we think about what we learned from the 5 dysfunctions, we think about just that pyramid structure. I included a link to the table group because they have resources that are downloadable, that are free, that people can go to. They can take an assessment on their team function or dysfunction. And, just that I offer a couple of questions that you could go back to your employees with, go back to your organization with. A lot of the work that I do is with bringing teams together. And usually I use assessments to have something very tangible and concrete for teams to talk about and get on the same page and use the same language. But essentially, what I find the most of my auxiliary work is getting people to trust each other, getting people to have enough trust with each other that they can have difficult conversations to gain clarity, and then helping them to set goals that bring everyone's strengths to the table and they're used in an appropriate way, setting expectations to meet those goals around those strengths. And so as you think about the 5 dysfunctions of a team, as you think about what this means for the people you lead and the people you serve, use this checklist maybe once a month after a difficult meeting or even before a difficult meeting, and think about what you can do as a leader to help create an environment where it is safe to be functional. And so our final book is something that Rachel does a lot of work with. She is on the cusp of looking at what's around the bend to bring people to build solutions together, particularly in the areas that are developing. And so what Chip Heath talks about, or Dan Heath, I always forget which one, talks about with upstream, is the focus that really needs to exist on looking around the bend. And I'm so happy to say that's something Winter Partners does really well, is we do look around the bend in industry. And every time that we pick up a search, we're looking around the bend for what that organization needs and sniffing out every opportunity to vet that completely. And so a couple things from upstream that are pretty important to think about. And the first one, I think we've all heard, when everything's important, nothing's important. Another piece from the book was the move your chair piece. So instead of being so upset that someone's bumping your chair, just get up and move your chair, because you can control that. Other things that I thought were just really, really important was being impatient for action and patient for outcomes. I thought that was particularly important as I challenged you to create a SMART goal. And then those two in the middle, the longer ones, I think this really feeds into a lot of the work that our members were talking about in their roles. It's hard to convince people to collaborate when hardship hasn't forced them to. So if people don't really understand what the problem is, if they don't really understand what it feels like to be that squeezed in that way, it's going to be harder for them to let go of the particular area that they feel comfortable in. And then that last one, you can't solve a problem that you can't see. And these were really beautifully written in the book, great things for us to think about. But I wanted to just pull it all together for us today, so that as we share what the mastermind has caused us to think about or change or get curious about, we might be able to just, have this resource to go back to, have these books to go back to, and have this community to go back to, copying, getting on an email or getting on the phone with someone to get a little feedback, to see around the corner, to get some feedback on how to have that difficult conversation or build the trust, or to really get your head in the right place and realize that the back seat's a really important seat to be in. So I'm gonna let us go back to our agenda, and I'm gonna stop sharing. I think stop recording too.